Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Blue Devil Beat. I'm your host, Ranjan Jindal, here joined by my co-host, Caleb Dudley. How are you, Caleb?
I'm good. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back. It's just us two today in the studio, but we have a jam-packed episode because there's been a lot of Duke sports happening of late, and we're going to recap them all and preview the basketball coming up. So to start off, we're going to talk about Duke's 46-45 thrilling win over in Clemson, South Carolina. I was there covering the game, so I'll give some insight into that. And then we're going to do a recap of fall sports, heading into postseason action already. And then talk about men's and women's basketball. As we were recording, women's basketball just finished their first game. They lost to Baylor over in Paris. So we'll talk about that game and then preview Duke men's basketball's contest against Texas coming up tomorrow to start the season. So exciting episode all around. But first, this podcast is brought to you by Duke Stores. Support your favorite Duke team. Duke Stores is home to the only collection of merchandise brought to you straight from Duke University. Go to shop.duke.edu for all of your Duke merch. So let's start with football, and what a game it was down in Clemson. I mentioned 46-45. Duke won on a 2-point conversion. Waffle House, as Manny Diaz said, the play there that's always open, to defeat Clemson on a game-winning possession where it was a back-and-forth thrilling affair, offensive fireworks. The over was already hit in the first half break, so that was indicative of the performance there, and I'll give my thoughts in a second. But just to start out with you, Caleb, I'll get some of your overall thoughts on the win for Duke.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. I thought at first that Duke started out really well, so it seemed like Duke, might run away. Clemson's been struggling throughout the year, but the Tigers got right back into it, and it was back and forth the whole time. Super exciting, fun to watch if you like offense. I thought like the graphs come out like Duke probably maybe didn't deserve to win. Probably didn't play good enough on defense to win that game, but they did, and it's now they're in a pretty good spot going forward. Big moments the rest of the week, the rest of the season.
Yeah, both defenses struggled to gain any sense of rhythm. I thought I'll start with Duke on offense. Obviously, Darian Mensah kept on doing what he's been doing, throwing for 361 and 4 touchdowns. The interesting thing with Mensah is that although Duke jumped off to a 21-7 lead, there were a few possessions there where Clemson's defensive line really put pressure on Mensah. And for the majority of the game, Clemson focused on eliminating the run. Nate Shepard only had 7 rushing yards in the first half. And so I think the biggest possession was that last possession in the first half. So Duke is down 28-21 at this point. Clemson has scored 21 unanswered in the second quarter. And Darian Mensah leads a 2-minute drive down the field. And it was almost good that they had to do 2-minute offense because they could not run the ball. They were forced to throw, which had been so successful. Clemson's secondary has not been playing well at all year. And so I thought coming into the game that would be the biggest matchup advantage for Duke. And Mensah throws a beauty to Quayshawn Brown there as the first half seconds expire. And that really set the tone going forward for the second half. Clemson came out on offense and continued to play well. But I thought Duke stole a couple possessions when it mattered. Obviously, the kickoff return touchdown, and then those last 2 minutes before the first half were really big for Duke.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of been a theme all year at this point. Duke's been really, I don't know that I have a number on hand, but 2-minute drill, they've been really, really effective. The Illinois game jumps to mind, too, as another drive where they had to score right for half, and they did. And Mensah seems to be really good in that situation when they really just kind of cut him loose and let him sling it. I thought, you talk about the Higgins touchdown, I thought the special teams this week was honestly really, really good. Probably the best week they've had. Polino you had the kicking competition during the week. He won it and seemed, and deserved. He was 6 for 6 overall on kicks. Obviously, the touchdown there from Higgins, first one of the season. On kick return, and then Cade Reynolds was only 3 punts, but 152 yards. So good average there. So I thought, yeah, special teams, obviously, in a game that close, you need all 3 phases to do their job, and so special teams held up their end of the bargain pretty well.
And the good part was they didn't really need special teams, especially on offense. Both teams scored when they got to the red zone, so it wasn't a Georgia Tech situation where you fumble at the goal line or you get stifled and you need to kick field goals like against Tulane. Every time Duke got in the red zone except once, capitalized with a touchdown, and every time it moved down the field, it did. And so, offense was phenomenal. Cooper Barkate doing his thing, probably the easiest 70-yard touchdown Darian Mensah will throw in his life, a wide-open ball to Cooper Barkate. I want to shout out Jeremiah Hazley, too, who made 3 really big catches, one on 4th down over the middle, and then one on the 3rd down play on the last possession. It was a 40-yard pass over the top of the defense on 3rd down. And so I thought Hazley did a phenomenal job there. And just generally, Coach Diaz said he told Darian before that last drive, like, where else would you want to be but here in Death Valley? You have a chance to go win the game. And Mensah's poise was phenomenal. And Diaz called the game knowing that he thought he could win, right?
Right.
Going for all those fourth downs, especially early in the first quarter. Imagine how much confidence that gives your quarterback going for fourth downs early, going for 2 at the end. And so I thought Duke called the game aggressively, and they benefited from that in the end.
Yeah.
Flipping over to the defensive side, obviously a big struggle there. Cade Klubnik probably played the best game of his season, and Clemson was very balanced offensively, but exploited the screen game, especially. You had a lot of those against a banged up Duke secondary, but why do you think Clemson was so successful against Duke's defense on Saturday?
Yeah. I thought, I was curious to see how Cade would be with, the ankle injury coming back, but I thought, he looked pretty solid. He didn't look like it was hampering him too bad. Um, Yeah, I was really impressed, honestly, with the Clemson offense. I thought with Wesco out for the year too, that they would struggle a little bit, but they torched the Duke secondary. Um, I will say, I think part of that Duke secondary is not, you just said, banged up and it's kind of struggled all year. Um, Kamari Robinson out, missed the game with injury, so had Landon Callahan in there in his first real start. And I thought, they had some plays. Secondary made a couple plays. Musa Kane had a sack early, that was big, but secondary is really kind of been a weak spot for Duke all season long, and I think that Clemson had a good game plan to exploit that.
Yeah, and Landon Callahan getting hurt there in the second half didn't help the case. I will say, although Clemson exploited Duke on the screens, there was one, I want to say 3rd and 6. It was on Clemson's last offensive possession before the Hail Mary attempt of
Right.
whatever at the end. But Duke needed to stop there to get the ball back, and there was a screenplay, and Duke stopped it. I can't remember who got the tackle there, but that was big. Coach Diaz mentioned that in the post-game presser because if Clemson gets that first down, the game, for all intents and purposes, is not over, but
Yep.
it's close to over with how fast it is. Okay, VJ
VJ Anthony.
got the tackle. I'm looking that up right now, and so it was a screen pass there. Still 5 minutes left, but Clemson had all the momentum there, so that was big. I also want to shout out, I thought Luke Mergott played a phenomenal game. He had a couple tackles for loss. There was a couple times where he got lost in coverage, but for the majority of the game, his role as a linebacker, the only, leading the team in tackles there, the only guy in some plays that was near the vicinity of Clemson's running backs. So I thought Mergott played a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Let's see. Any other thoughts from that game? Great
No.
atmosphere.
I think all year's kind of been a theme, but shout out Duke O-line again.
Yep.
Same 5 guys. They've been really solid. Kept Mensa upright for the most part. 2 sacks against a really, really good Clemson D line. Peter Woods had one. Jaheim Lawson had the other. So whole TJ Parker with a no sacks, and Peter was only one as big. So shout out to them. They've done a really good job, and thankfully been healthy all year for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, they did a phenomenal job. I think the thing for Duke moving forward is to establish that running game more consistently. Now that's 2 straight weeks where Duke has not been able to get the ground game going.
Yeah.
And with how well Darian Mensah is playing, it kind of masks that. But if you get the ground game going, I mean, this offense, I don't know who's stopping Duke's offense moving forward.
Yeah.
And moving forward, let's go to that right now. Duke's going to take on a non-conference foe in UConn up in Storrs, Connecticut.
East Hartford, actually, this week.
Oh, East Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Storrs?
Also Storrs. They play like half and half. Same thing with basketball.
Oh.
It's a weird school, weird place. But this one is East Hartford. I looked it up to make sure. East Hartford.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for informing there.
No problem.
So UConn is not doing a typical UConn season in the sense that their football team has not had a great program over the past few years, or I guess prior to the past few years, but hiring Jim Mora has really turned things around, and they now are 6-3, I believe. Joe Fagnano at quarterback there, 22 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I saw this. The only 3 losses that UConn have all come in overtime. One of them being to Syracuse early in the season. I remember that one. But UConn can score and UConn can play, so this is not going to be a cakewalk for Duke. But what are you looking for in this matchup for Duke against?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, UConn has been pretty solid. To me, in terms of all the teams Duke's played, UConn seems to be kind of the most one-dimensional when it comes to they have one really good running back and one really good receiver, and the rest of the guys are kind of so-so. Those guys being came over to us 815 yards on the ground and 9 touchdowns, and then Skylar Bell, who was really good also last year for them, has 994 and 11 touchdowns through the air. So for Duke, I think the game plan is going to be those 2 guys are going to have the key in there. Chandler Rivers, I would assume, probably get Skylar Bell a good bit. So I think UConn's been pretty solid. Their schedule hasn't been the hardest thing in the world, but they've definitely taken care of the games they've had. Credit to Fagnano's protected the ball really. 0 picks through 9 games is pretty impressive. So for Duke, yes, I think it'll be another pass heavy game for both teams probably, and so interested to see how how the Duke defense fares against Vignano.
Yeah, agreed. This is a good chance for a test, but also a confidence booster for Duke. Obviously, Clemson was a big win for the program, but I think you don't want to look too much ahead. But
Yeah.
with the three ACC contests going forward, you want a Duke team who's playing with a lot of confidence, who's feels like they have everything clicking, and you also need to get healthy. Unfortunately, we did get the news today at the Manny Diaz's press conference that Elliot Shopper is out for the season. He was a linebacker who came in, really played well against Cal there. That was kind of his breakout game, and played in relief of some injuries to Trey Freeman and Kendall Johnson, but he's going to be out for the year. So who from the second string can step up across the board? Because if this does turn into a game where Duke is leading in the third and fourth quarter, you're going to see a lot of guys in the roster come play, and so those guys can make their marks for the future season. But I don't know. I think this one Duke will win by low double digits type of vibes. But I think shouldn't be anything too scary for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes to, I think you're right. I think Duke definitely is the more talented team, more battle tested at this point too. But I think for Duke, I mean, the main thing looking at the stats is they're gonna have to keep the ball on offense and not turn it over.
Yeah.
UConn's +10 this year turnover ratio. When you have a quarterback that hasn't turned the ball over all year through the air, that's gonna help you out. But I think for Duke, I mean, Mensa's done a good job taking care of the ball recently, and so I think for the Blue Devils, just continuing that trend is really important. Even if the outcome is double digit win, like you're saying, to see that trend continue would be really really important.
Yeah, and now Duke is right in the heart back into this ACC race, which I don't even want to try to figure out. But Duke, for all intents and purposes, I think not controls its own destiny, but is closest to controlling its own destiny
Yeah.
as possible. I'm not exactly sure how the tiebreakers are going to stack up, but with one loss, you got Virginia, which is going to be the biggest game. If you win all three of those, every other ACC team is going to have a loss in some sort of way. Georgia Tech obviously holds the tiebreaker because Georgia Tech beat Duke, but every other one seems like Duke might hold the tiebreaker when they come together. Who knows how it all works? But Duke is playing for a lot right now, and obviously this week less so than in the future. But after a couple weeks ago where it seemed like Duke was out of it, anything can happen in this crazy league.
Yeah. We'll touch on that in a little bit. I think some more with these ACC teams, so we'll go forward into that.
Yeah. So right now, I mentioned Duke is 4-1 in the league. They're tied for, I guess, second, technically third, because Georgia Tech and Pitt are 5-1, but Louisville, SMU, and Duke are all at 4-1. So a couple of those teams are going to play each other. So there might be some losses there, but exciting stuff for Charlotte. Let's move on to our stock up, stock down in the ACC. We haven't done this in a while, but this is for new listeners of the podcast. We pick a team that is trending upward and trending downward in the ACC, and there's a lot of that everywhere. So go ahead, man.
Yeah, I had a hard time picking a team this week, so I just went with chaos as my stock up.
Okay.
The conference, I feel like it's the same kind of narrative the SEC tries to push, where they're like, "Oh, all our teams are so good and we beat each other up and it's fine." But when the ACC does it, it's like, "Oh, it's not fine." But I think it is. It is fine. It really is. You got 6 teams with 1 loss or less: Virginia, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Louisville, SMU, Duke. And the games have been crazy. Like all the games come down to the wire. You had that SMU game this week that went to overtime with Miami. Virginia's had some crazy games. Almost lost to North Carolina. Georgia Tech lost to State. State has now beat Virginia and Georgia Tech, who are the top 2 teams, even though Virginia's loss was a non-conference loss. So it's just crazy. Who knows what's going to happen going forward? I don't know what sports book, but I know I saw Duke had the best odds to win the conference championship. Maybe they understand the tiebreakers better than we do. Not super sure, but I know going forward, I think it's really anyone's game. It's gonna be the Virginia game, like you said, is gonna be really, really important for Duke. Louisville going forward, I would say is one of probably the better odds, but they did lose Isaac Brown for the rest of the season. Today, their star running back. So really going forward, who knows? Could be, I guess, any combo of those 6 teams in Charlotte in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. And then stock down, I'll go with Miami. I thought Miami was gonna be, probably maybe the favorite to win the conference, if not, up there. And they've really kind of disappointed as of late. Kind of 2 years in a row where they've looked really solid, and then down the stretch have kind of lost a game they probably shouldn't have. Carson Beck, didn't look great against SMU. Now down to 2-2 in the conference, and playoff hopes are probably pretty dashed for Miami. So they're my stock down, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch that game because I was covering, but SMU Miami overtime game, it's just Carson Beck feels like he's giving away the ball a little too much for the Hurricanes there. My stock up, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh, who is now quietly won 5 in a row. A team I mentioned at the beginning of the season is kind of a sleeper, but I didn't think that this quarterback would be playing as well as he is right now. So benching Eli Holstein after not doing too hot to start the year, losses to West Virginia early and someone else, Louisville. Yeah, and so you go with Mason Heinstoll, who's a true freshman, and man, I saw him make some throws his first game, and I was like, whoa, this guy's got poise. He can fit balls into tight windows. He came in on a 4th down, I think, against Louisville, maybe it was, and made an incredible throw. And I was like, wow, this guy's got something, and he can use his legs to run. And when you have him and Desmond Reed, who's been a little bit banged up, but should be back for the final stretch for these guys, Pitt is a dangerous team on offense. And then you got linebackers who are some of the best in the country, and this is a team to watch. I think they've gone through kind of their easiest part of their schedule so far, the ACC. BC, Florida State, Syracuse, NC State, and Stanford. Nothing too crazy there, but the next 3 games, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami, Pitt can definitely play spoiler to these teams and launch itself well into the ACC conversation there. So Pitt is my stock up. And then my stock down is Boston College, which feels a little bit unfair with how many injuries that they've had and everything that program has had to go through this year. But it's been pretty rough for Boston College. Bill O'Brien over there did an admirable job last year and had some decent firepower on offense now, starting Grayson James at quarterback. They've been fighting in some of their games, but the rest has just been downhill ever since that loss to Stanford over earlier in the season. So Boston College is unfortunately my stock down at 0-5 in the ACC and 1-8.
Yep.
Sorry to BC. Okay. Any other ACC storylines that you're looking at this week or for the rest of the season? There's a lot
I don't even think you could. The script writers couldn't even draw it up. So
No.
we're just gonna have to watch and see what happens.
UNC got its first win.
Yeah, UNC. Syracuse decided to go 3rd-string quarterback, never played a game. True freshman. Did not work out. UNC has looked better. Credit to them. They've, that Cal game they fumbled on the goal line to lose, and then Virginia they went to overtime. So definitely starting to play a little bit better in Chapel Hill, and obviously that's on Duke's docket here in a couple of weeks. So we'll see if they keep trending up or if they maybe just kind of a 1 win against a pretty bad Syracuse team at this point.
Yeah, definitely will. They would love to spoil Duke's season, so that'll be a fun game. You'll be down there in Chapel Hill.
Yep.
Also nationally, just everything that's been happening now. Did we talk about Brian Kelly? I don't know if we talked about Brian Kelly. Now Hugh Freeze, who I also think is a good coach in a tough situation. You have Norvell, who's still has a job, but I don't know for how much longer. And obviously James Franklin. There's a lot of chaos in this college football world, and the playoffs are so uncertain. I don't know. This national landscape feels kind of crazy. What have you been watching in college football?
It is really crazy. I think it's one of those years where it's hard for me to tell. I think Ohio State pretty clearly looks like the best team. They've it's kind of been quiet because they've been really, really good in handling their business, which has been hard for a lot of teams to do this year. So I'm interested to see how it turns out. I think the rankings come out tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday, which is the reason for the 8:45 Duke basketball tip. It's very interesting. I do think it's very interesting. The SEC and Big Ten, I think, are going to dominate, the rankings. They changed the rule now where you don't have to be a top 4 seed if you're a conference champion. So I expect to see, Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, and Alabama tomorrow probably as the top 4. And so it'll be interesting because, SEC, kind of like the ACC, is a lot of teams there with 1 loss. And so it'll be a tight race down the stretch for them as well. So, interesting to see. I think, the Vanderbilt story was something I was watching that kind of petered out this week. Texas is coming up, which is interesting to see there. But really, I think the most fun thing to me is the Group of 5 race. A lot of really good teams. Memphis has looked really good. North Texas has looked really good. So I'm interested to see kind of what turns out there. The American has 6 teams that are tied for first, kind of like the ACC and the SEC. So, we'll see what happens down the stretch. But interested to see kind of how the committee views the teams tomorrow.
Tulane got waxed last week. That was
not good for Dukes. Not good for Dukes.
East Carolina 2 in a row wins.
Yeah, ECU. They got Memphis 2 weeks from now. If ECU wins out, they make the conference championship.
This is just what makes college football beautiful, guys. Every week you never know what's going to happen. The SEC can have any given team win on any given day, or across the country as well. So excited to see those rankings tomorrow, and who knows? Duke may find its way over there if it keeps winning. All right, let's move on from football, and we'll talk about basketball, but we'll start with our fall sports rundown. Why don't you give us what's going on in fall sports?
Yes, sir. We'll start with field hockey. Sadly, field hockey, I'll start with there. Overtime loss to UNC. Was that last night? 2 nights ago as I'm recording this?
Yeah.
Recently. It's been a bad stretch against UNC. Overtime loss is killer, but still having a good season for field hockey overall. Women's soccer, they kind of had a stretch in the middle of the season where they lost some games they probably should have won. We're in danger of missing the ACC tournament. They've made the ACC tournament now. Just won the quarterfinals last night in a rainy one against Louisville. Moving on to semifinals against Notre Dame on Thursday. Yeah. Men's soccer beat UNC, first time in a while there, 2-0, I believe. A big win for a Duke soccer offense that's kind of struggled at times to put the ball in the net. So that was good there. Wrestling, 1-0, 15-point comeback against Sacred Heart.
Wow.
Down 15-1, won 16-15. So that's pretty cool. Volleyball's lost 5 in a row. Been a tough season there for a young volleyball team, and a really good ACC. Fencing, we had a big-time performance from Sophia Shin, Blue Devil of the Week. Won gold at the Nikki Frank Classic. Then the most recent match was against UNC. I want to say the women won and the men lost. And then men's golf, Brian Kim keeps doing it in the fall. So we had a really good fall out of Brian Kim. Building a lot of momentum for the spring.
Yeah, ACC Men's Golfer of the Month, Brian Kim. I don't know the Blue Devil of the Week race. I was going to pull up my phone and check, but I think Brian Kim might be ahead there. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Beast.
All right, yeah. Postseason soccer is here, and field hockey. Duke should make marks in all of those. It'll be fun. Probably maybe some games on campus. I don't know if we'll have that for the tournament, but
yeah, I think
we'll see down there.
Women's soccer should be.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some basketball. Well, first of all, our print edition is on shelves across campus today. For those of you who are on campus, shout out.
There it is.
Back to the blueprint.
Yes, sir.
Pick one up if you're on campus. We also, exciting news, we're going to have these on racks across Cameron Indoor.
Yes, sir.
And in the Basketball Hall of Fame starting next weekend when the games first start in Cameron for about a week. So pick these up. A lot of great work, a lot of features across the board. Do you want to talk about your feature? And I'll talk about
I will.
We can start.
So I went and did a deep dive on Duke recruiting. Obviously, high school recruiting has changed a lot over the years with, NIL and private schools and everything. International, the game growing a lot internationally. So just went back, kind of broke it down, made a couple cool graphics, maps of kind of where players would come from historically, talked to a lot of really cool and decorated coaches around the country. Just to kind of see, where Duke's trends are recruiting and where they might go in the future.
Yeah, that was a really cool article. There's some cool graphics and designs in there. We're splitting a page together, Caleb and I, so check out this page. Mine was about Duke's new commitment to player development with the hiring of Evan Brads, Tyler Thornton, promoting Jace McCain. Yep. I talked to Coach Brads about the individual drill work that they do called the Blueprint Time, hence the Back to the Blueprint title here. John Shire's really focused on that, and also what he calls the 98%, the things that a player can do besides shooting that can impact the game. A lot of these are common things that teams do, but Duke's talked a lot about that in its preseason, especially with how young of a roster Shire's group it has coming into this season. So kind of did a dive into that. But amazing features from everyone who wrote in this preview, and you should definitely check out the online content as well. Let's talk about women's first, because we were just coming off of the game here. The Carol Lawson squad kicked off their season over in Paris, like we mentioned, but unfortunately for Duke, fallen to Baylor in a tight one, 52-58. First game jitters across the board, a low-scoring contest, which is the epitome of Duke women's basketball, but you were able to see the second half. I unfortunately was in class, so tell us what you saw there from Duke women's basketball.
Yeah, I thought the first half was, good, typical Carol Lawson basketball. Is good defense, timely shot making. Second half, I think maybe, just beginning of the season, a little bit of unlucky. Just went really cold on offense. Did not make a three in the second half. Oh, they made one maybe at the end. But they for a while, they were 3-pointless in the second half. Shooting percentage was really low, overall 29%, which isn't going to win you a lot of games. And yeah, they were down Emily Skinner and Ariana Roberson, two expected to be pretty good contributors to the team. So playing with a 7-woman rotation, there's a lot of foul trouble around the board. So it was just not the best start. We had to fly across the country and play a pretty good Baylor team who I thought played well. Going forward, I hope to see the offense tick up a little bit. And then I thought the defense was solid. Second half, they just seemed to foul a lot on drives. So I'd like to see them cut that down. But overall, not the result they want, but a lot of season left and a lot of big games left for Duke.
Yeah, I was going to mention the fouling. It seemed to me like that was the big issue on top of clearing the glass. Baylor out-rebounded Duke, and it seemed like there was a lot of fouls off the offensive glass, and I know Carol Austin is going to be harping on that. When you lose a player like Lucia Conwell, who is so dominant on the glass, who is going to replace that? Even from the guard standpoint, Toby did her share with 10, but I think Ariana Roberson will help, along with just more depth across the team. Carol Austin's teams are known for pressing and rotating and fresh legs and everything like that. But when you play 7 players, it's hard to do that. But along with the men's team, Duke women's basketball has a pretty stacked non-conference schedule. A couple games coming forward where Duke can get right, and then some tests, including South Carolina looming in a few weeks.
Yep.
All right. Well, the men's side is going to kick off its season tomorrow in Charlotte. We're going to be going.
Yes, sir.
As fans, not covering, but against Texas in the Spectrum Center there. We have Beats Picks out on the website. We talked about a little bit last week on our recaps from the exhibition games that Duke played, but just looking to this matchup specifically, give us a preview of what Texas has. Obviously, Sean Miller coming in his first year of the program. What are you looking for on this roster?
Yeah, it's a pretty new look. I think two of the starters, projected starters for Texas, are coming over from Xavier. Daywin Swain being the headliner there. Yeah, I'm interested to see. It's every team. It's new look around the country. For the most part, Texas with Tremont Mark, Jordan Pope coming back. I think they'll be pretty solid. I don't think they're quite up to snuff with Duke in terms of just talent on the roster, but I think it'll be a good test for Duke. Rather than playing some tune-up at home, they get to play a pretty fun game in Spectrum Center, honor Dickie V on ESPN, and have a fun way to start the season. So I'm excited to see how they look. Excited to see who outside of Cam Boozer steps up tomorrow in a big way. Hopefully the whole team will be playing. I'm not sure on Malik Brown's status, but I would imagine he plays. So looking forward to seeing, finally for the first time Duke play as one coherent group.
Yeah, agreed. A couple things I'm looking out for. One is who plays for Texas. There's a couple concerns regarding on the injury front, especially on their big men's Moktas Bokatitis.
Maybe.
I'm going to go with that. And Trare from Long Beach State. Both are questionable, I believe, to play. So we'll see if either or both can go. But if not, Duke will have the depth advantage at the forward position. I do think the one area that Texas does have an advantage is the guard continuity. You mentioned Jordan Pope. You have Tremont Mark and Jindal Weaver who are coming back. They they can shoot the ball, they can score the ball, but I don't know if they have an individual scorer who can match the firepower of the Blue Devils. I want to see who scores around Boozer for Duke, but I think regardless, Duke can outscore Texas. And I was impressed with against Tennessee, even though maybe it wasn't as efficient in the first half. I mean, Duke still scored 80-plus points, I want to say. So I think Duke can get up there and win this game in a close but good win for Duke. Yeah, excited for that game and for the rest of the season for the Blue Devils. As always, check out our content at dukechronicle.com. We'll be having all of our features up there and coverage of the game tomorrow, I think, from Sophie and Elle, 2 of our beat writers. So check that out. And women's basketball preview is out now. And we will be back next week to recap the UConn game, talk basketball, fall sports, football, all that good stuff. We are in the month of November, which means every sport pretty much is playing right now. So thank you guys so much for listening. Again, pick up a print across shell on campus. Cross campus. So we'll see you guys next week. For Caleb Dudley, I'm Ranjan Jindal. This has been Blue Devil Beat.